Yoshi has a very unique ability, the Flutterkick, otherwise known as the Scuttle Kick. But can it actually work? That's the question I'm tackling today on the Science of Gaming. So, the Flutterkick. To have an idea of how it works, we should take a look at what some of the real-life counterparts might be.
But there's nothing that floats through the air like that.
That is correct, Mr. Piat. To my knowledge, there is nothing that walks through the air. However, there are animals that walk and run on water. Let me introduce you to the basilisk lizard, also known as the Jesus lizard. These little guys are able to run on water.
But water and air are nothing alike though.
But there you are wrong, Mr. Piat. Water and air both count as fluids, but as you might have guessed, there are significant differences between them. One is a liquid and one is a gas. Liquids are much denser than gases by nature. The density of air is around 1.275 kilograms per meters cubed, and water has a density of around 999.97 kilograms per meters cubed. That's a pretty huge difference, and that could go a long way to helping our little lizard friend. But water and air differences aren't the only problem Yoshi encounters. First of all, basilisk lizards aren't exactly big, and Yoshi is able to carry a huge human on his back. A basilisk can grow up to about 2.5 feet, and Yoshi? Well, we need to figure out Yoshi's size. To do that, we need to figure out some sense of scale might be. One way that could be done is with other characters in the Mario universe, such as Mario himself. Mario has been calculated to be about 4.5 feet by game theory. They did this by comparing Mario and Shaquille O'Neal in a Mario-themed basketball game that had Shaq in it. Now that we know Mario's height, we can compare Yoshi to Mario and get a good height for Yoshi. Comparing the two in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, we get Yoshi to be about 5.4 feet.
But Brawl isn't canon. You can't use that.
Right you are, Mr. Piat. Brawl is not canon. But also remember, I am trying to calculate the flight physics of a fictional dinosaur who regularly converts small, mask-wearing creatures into large projectile eggs almost instantly. Is the fact that I'm using a certain game to calculate the height of a common character between that game and another game, is that really your biggest issue here? I thought as much. Comparing the basilisk's height of 2.5 feet and Yoshi's of 5.4 feet, we see that Yoshi is about 2.16 times the height of the basilisk. Now we have to compare weight, another important consideration in Yoshi's Flutterkick. If we scaled up the weight of a large basilisk, about 3.88 grams, by multiplying by 2.16, we get 838 grams, or about 1.8 pounds. That is extremely small for Yoshi. That's not even feasibly small. But then again, this is video games, and there have been stranger things than a character's height and weight being disproportionate. However, to satisfy myself, I took a look at some of the real-world lizards around Yoshi's height. These were mostly monitor lizards, and a common range of weight was around 15 kilograms, which would seem a little more reasonable.
You're forgetting something.
Am I? Please tell me what it is.
Yoshi has a passenger with him.
Goodness, you're right. Thank you for reminding me. Yoshi has a newborn Mario with him. A typical newborn will weigh around 7 pounds or 3.1 kilograms. Looking at the two weights and adding that of baby Mario, we will have Yoshi weighing either 4.016 kilograms if we're taking the smaller weight, or 18.1 kilograms if we're taking the bigger one. Now, Yoshi has to deal with the force of gravity and overcome that force. The force of gravity exerted upon Yoshi would be Yoshi's mass in kilograms times the acceleration of gravity, or 9.8 meters per second. In order for the Flutterkick to work, Yoshi would have to creating more push down than that of gravity on him if he was to gain any height. The force of gravity on Yoshi would either be 176 newtons if we're using the 18 kilogram weight, or if we're using the 4 kilogram weight, we're getting about 39 newtons. Bit of a gap there. Now, how do we calculate the force that Yoshi is creating when he's pushing down? Well, here's a handy little formula to calculate the drag or resistance that Yoshi would be creating. The force of drag is equal to 1/2 times the mass density of the fluid times the object speed squared times the drag coefficient times the cross-sectional area of the object. Now, what does all of that mean? Well, the force of drag is what we're looking for, as that will be what the reaction force pushing up against Yoshi's feet and hands is. Let's fill in some of these variables. Mass density of air is 1.275 kilograms per meters cubed, which we knew, and the drag coefficient for a flat object like Yoshi's feet would be 1.28. For the other two coefficients, we'll have to do some calculations, which will be different for hands and feet. Let's start with feet. First, we need to calculate the cross-sectional area, or how big Yoshi's feet are. Looking at some photos and using Yoshi for scale, we can figure out that Yoshi's feet are about 1.4 feet long and 1.05 feet wide, giving us an area of about 1.47 square feet, or about 0.136 meters squared. Next, we need the time and distance his foot moves in a step in order to calculate the object's speed. The time is easy. 1 second for a Flutterkick from start to finish, and about 7 steps are taken with the foot in that time. So 1 step takes about 0.14 seconds. Next, we need to calculate the distance his foot moves. Comparing side by side some photos and using some more measurements, we get the distance to be about 3.67 feet, or about 1.11 meters. Distance over time, and we get 7.98 meters per second. That's pretty quick for feet. Now that we have all the variables in this equation, we can calculate the force of resistance. Plugging in all those numbers, we get 7.0996 newtons. Double that to account the fact that Yoshi has 2 feet, and we get 14.1 newtons. That's still very disappointingly small. That's not enough to even handle the smaller of the two weights. So his feet on his own cannot handle the weight of himself and Mario. What could his arms do if we add them to the feet? We're still using some of the variables that we did last time, the density of fluid and the drag coefficient, but the other two numbers need to be accounted for. Let's once again start with the cross-sectional area. Using some more measurements, I got to the measurement that Yoshi's hand is about 0.39 meters from fingertip to wrist and about as wide as they are tall. I know his hands aren't a perfect square and missing large portions, but I'm willing to bet that the rest of his arm would make up for the lost area. So we reach an approximate area of 0.157 meters squared. For distance and time to cover the speed, it's the same time that it takes for him to make a step, or about 0.14 seconds. Distance covered is about 3.09 feet, or about 0.944 meters. Distance divided by time ends up being 6.74 meters per second. Plugging in all the variables for his hands, we get 5.81 newtons. Multiply that by 2 for 2 hands, and we get 11.63. Adding the forces of his hands and feet together, we get 25.7 newtons. Using either of these weights discussed, Yoshi flutters like a brick. An adorable little brick. So there you have it. Yoshi's Flutterkick would certainly help slow the pair down, but it's not capable of pushing Yoshi upwards. Looking at the math, it just doesn't work, but it's always possible I'm not getting all the information I need. I mean, Yoshi's making a heck of a noise when he kicks. For all I know, Yoshi's adding flatulence to the mix to give him some additional upwards push. Or maybe Mario isn't as big as the average baby and doesn't weigh as much. I mean, he grew up to be pretty short, right? Additionally, for all we know, gravity in the Mushroom Kingdom isn't as much as it is on our normal Earth. I mean, every playable character is able to jump very high, more than twice their height in many cases. Either all of them are very, very strong, or something else is going on there. At the end of the day, we can't really know how Yoshi's Flutterkick works. We can't apply real-life physics to a video game and get accurate results. Not always. However, we can always try. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hey, thanks for sticking it out to this point in the video. If you liked watching me struggle to explain a video game, feel free to click that like or subscribe button. If you want to see more of that, click the annotation on screen to watch me try and figure out the species of Jabu Jabu the whale. That's not all I have to show though. I've also got some a cappella music of video games if you care to hear that. More videos to come. Until then, I'll see you next time.